It's interesting how Jesus made it so that criticizing him only affirms these delusions, this beta quadra cult narrative. And the fact that he was defeated or crucified also affirms that he was right. It puts you in this mindset. In the battle against man against man, they will always find a way to protect their ego and pride, won't they? It's the reason why they're always finding new meanings for something Jesus or some great prophet said when the prophecy was not fulfilled. They're always going to twist the narrative if that means you believe longer, if that means you hold faith in this person that existed thousands of years ago. So many double meanings and so many interpretations of something that should be a lot more straightforward if they meant what they said. A lot of people ask online, why do people hate Jesus? Why is he so hated? And if you hate Jesus, the Christian psychosis or the beta quadra cult psychosis will use this hatred to reinforce their beliefs because that's how they have you programmed. There's a verse, there are a few verses, but I'm going to stick to one for now, that really rubbed me the wrong way. And I've been told and taught to interpret things in a very particular way that paints Jesus in a positive light, because everything that he says is holy and he lived such a perfect life that was sinless. But when he said in John 15:18, if the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. Okay, this would obviously be targeted towards individuals who have been scapegoated, who have been outcasts in society. And on a surface level, this feels very compassionate to say, you're not alone. They called me crazy once. They don't understand nor see what we see through this spiritual beta quadra lens. And I get that. But I also interpret it as him stealing the spotlight the same way that my narcissistic parents, who were devout Christians, who still are devout Christians, would do. Where you're having a moment, you do not need someone to interject, and then they seem to outshine you or attempt to outshine you even when you're grieving and you really need that time. Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot of scriptures that make me feel like Jesus is a covert narcissist, or at the very least has many narcissistic or literally delusional traits. Do you know that nasty feeling you get when a narcissist does something like that? Oh, but what about me? Oh, but there's a time when I suffered more. They're attempting to take away your ability to feel your emotions without them. And because Jesus said often that he was the light and he was the way, he did interject himself into people's psyche to where they could not live without him in a very sick way. And so many of them are so brainwashed or covertly narcissistic themselves that this is seen as a great thing. This is holy. I love this. I love not having boundaries. You've been taught to interpret Jesus' language through a particular lens where you believe that he has good intent for you. If I look at it purely from a psychological point of view, without really having an attachment to religion or his teachings, he is emotionally hijacking his followers. And he is subtly teaching his followers that his emotions come first, the same way that narcissists do in current times, often religious ones, where they have to take over your psyche. You cannot suffer because they've suffered more. How dare you suffer when they've been through so much? That's what it feels like. His followers behave like flying monkeys, jumping to defend without any real evidence, proof, and a very biased point of view that doesn't consider logic or anyone else's real feelings outside of the lens of religion. They operate like the cult they are. They go around gaslighting people. If I really think about Jesus, removing as much bias as I personally have, he behaves exactly like a narcissist. And a covert, altruistic, self-righteous, INFJ Enneagram 1 narcissist. And you'd see similar patterns in people that you know today. If you have an opposing viewpoint of how this person secretly negs you or passive aggressively insults you, people are very quick to jump to their offense. Like, oh, he didn't mean that. This is how you should interpret the way that this person actually insulted you. They didn't mean it in that way. But, now that I think more about that verse that I kept quoting, surely I tell you that tax collectors and prostitutes will enter the kingdom of heaven before you. I partially saw that as a way for him to protect prostitutes, but now I'm seeing that he doesn't respect them either. He doesn't respect a tax collector nor a prostitute, because he's clearly painting them to be the scum of society and something or some people that aren't easily saved or rescued spiritually because their duty is just so beneath him. But then I thought that the insult was just so good, I automatically attributed him loving hoes, but I'm starting to believe differently. We were taught to like Jesus or to love Jesus. It was a threat to love Jesus or burn in hell. But when I look more at his character, he really sucked. I genuinely said that perhaps I liked Jesus a little bit more than I let on. But that's because I'm skeptical and I wonder if I actually can openly say that I don't like that motherfucker. I feel like me giving room to perhaps defend him would be me being fair and a slight fear of, burning in eternity forever. But how I've been honestly feeling lately is that Jesus is a fraud. And I'm so happy that I live in a country where I can freely express my thoughts, my views, and choose whatever religion I want. Shit, there's a mosque down the street from me. I'm scared about that in the future, but for now, I can openly just be whatever I want, religious-wise. Or I can be nothing at all. So I've been looking at verses to confirm my new bias. Matthew 15:21-28, where Jesus said, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." And I looked it up. So this was because a non-Jewish woman was asking Jesus to heal her demon-possessed daughter. He ignored her. She kept persisting. And then by saying, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs were actually just the Gentiles. So Jesus was a prejudiced bigot. Because children aren't off limits, I guess. They can go to hell too, right? So children would be the children of Israel. And the Gentiles aren't human. They're animals. They're dogs. They're dogs. Do you know how disgusting that is? And this was supposedly a perfect man. And denying him of his perfection is sinful, apparently. And it feels incredibly narcissistic. It's hierarchical, of course, because it would imply that he feels, as a Jewish man, allegedly, that he's better than these people of other nations. Even if it's a child of another nation, they are beneath human. And he really does take after the God of the Old Testament, because everything's about who's your God, who's your nation, this tribal beta quadrant energy, where if you're not a part of us, you might as well suffer, because this war is against you at the end of the day. It's us versus them, even if it's a child. The Old Testament has a lot of verses where they tell you to murder all of the children and the women. Make sure you get all of them, because you don't want someone to escape and rise up to fight you once again. It's a war manual. You know, the war god, the storm god, Yahweh. Yeah. The more that I look at Jesus, the more that I see how insensitive he is. I'm definitely reevaluating everything, because that's what I constantly do. But anyway, Matthew 8:21 through 22. Jesus told this man, "Follow me and let the dead bury their own dead." Context-wise, this Jewish man's father had passed away. And Jesus didn't give him the opportunity to bury his own father. He essentially just told him to let it rot, follow me, I'm more important. There's no way that you can make that sound better. If there isn't an immediate need to run for safety, why on earth would you want your loved one to rot in the open with the other corpses? And it was very dismissive too. What do you mean let the dead bury the dead? Do you mean let them decompose upon one another and turn back into the dirt from which they came? What's wrong with you? He seems like he seems like he seriously lacks empathy there. It is extremely hard to look at the Bible, research the Bible, and have another person's interpretation not be incredibly biased or justifying this narcissist. Someone's always there to cover for him. Don't you think that's weird? You know, he might be. But what this has taught me, John 6, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Isn't that weird? Why would I? I'm sorry. Like, looking at this from the perspective as an adult, I'm seeing that this guy is a weirdo. What do you mean you want me to symbolically eat your flesh and drink your blood? What do you mean you want me to worship you as if you are God himself? All of these are red flags, and we're taught to interpret them in a positive light, when if anyone else were doing the very same thing, they would be a narcissist, very clearly. So you want me to consume your hypothetical flesh. And, you know, hypothetically, everything that you eat contributes to the building of your new cells. You want to be so entwined into my biology that you're a part of me for several years until I rebuild everything gradually as I eat new foods. You know, all of the human cells in the body, don't they replace themselves every 7 years? And, you know, it takes a very long time to get rid of this doctrine too. So I guess it does work. And it repeatedly says throughout the Bible not to drink blood. So you want me to drink of your metaphorical blood and eat of your flesh, which is cannibalism. You call yourself the Son of Man, which is a human, context-wise. He's saying that he's a human here, but in other contexts, he says that he's the Son of God, which is God in the flesh. Okay, I get it, Jesus. Duality. Okay, got it. But I don't I don't think that's normal to say to drink your blood. You're directly going against your God. And that's kind of weird. And if he has a lot of followers abandon him, that automatically means that he was onto something, and it reinforces this belief that when you're abandoned or people see through your bullshit, you're right in the divine way that they can only see when they're in this psychosis, this religious psychosis. That would be the only people who would stick around after saying such absurd things. He was just going around giving bad advice to people. He told this one man to sell all of his stuff. This rich man, he told him to sell everything and follow him. Your riches is in heaven, I guess. Oh, but he won't financially support you because he's relying upon others. He wants you to rely upon others too. And I always thought that was kind of weird. He has people taking care of him, yet there are scriptures where he complains about it, where he's like, oh, the Son of God doesn't even have a place to rest his head. He's like guilt tripping you, but yet he chose to be homeless. And solely relying upon other people's generous nature, their kindness, or believing in your goal, I mean, that's quite manipulative and weird. You know how money works, yet you refuse to use it to benefit the people who you want to follow you. You expect them to not care about riches, but then you need them to feed you, or you require them to feed you and take care of you. It doesn't make sense. Are you going to split the loaves and fish every single time you need to eat? What if you have no loaf and no fish to split? He has to see poverty wherever he goes, but to me it seems he's delusional and entitled to other people's generosity because he's the Messiah. So he demonizes money, tells people to abandon everything to be with him, to follow him for his journey. He gives some financial advice, but clearly it wasn't good enough. But he wanted people to not value money, yet always needed it because he was homeless, and put himself in this perpetual state of suffering that would justify his wrongdoings or flaws. Because look at how much he's suffering for you. His suffering is for you, therefore you should not suffer. And if you suffer anyway, you're not following the word of God enough. There's always an excuse, because if you're supposed to die for our sins, why are we still suffering the same way that we did before you died? Yeah, it's symbolic, but come on, let's be real. We're still going to have to go through our own struggles. People have never stopped suffering, and it didn't change much in the physical realm. And it's another way for him to emotionally hijack you and guilt trip you out of experiencing your own life experiences, which are individual to you, so that you can focus on his goal. An argument I've seen with a lot of Christians would be that if Jesus were alive today, none of you would follow him. And I can see why. We would be able to see through this. We would be able to see that it's false. There's a man in Africa claiming to be the Messiah right now. There are cult leaders leading people astray, mixing the Kool-Aid as we speak. But because illogical thinking or illogical outcomes reinforce this beta quadra religious psychosis, these people cannot listen or comprehend logic at all. Why do people hate Jesus? Because he's wasted so many people's lives. he probably abused them psychologically because, like, from what I'm viewing, his attitude sucks. Luke 14:26. If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. So he's clearly preying upon people who have been outcasted and scapegoated and essentially becoming their new narcissistic father or teacher or role model. He's preying on these kinds of people. He knows what to look for because he himself was bullied because his mother and he may be potentially mentally ill and psychotic. So because he knows these weaknesses very thoroughly, that's why he preyed on people who are prone to magical thinking and escapism. And if I really think about it, Jesus Christ literally is competing with God. If you think about creation and, Lucifer falling from heaven, Jesus following behind him, both of them want to become like God. I thought that Jesus was a bit different, but he clearly is following out or fulfilling the will of his Father in heaven, Yahweh. I don't know if that's heaven, to be honest, but, he's fulfilling the duty of Yahweh. And Yahweh is a psychopathic, evil God. If you truly read the Old Testament, he's sadistic, cruel, and simply toys with humanity for fun. But Jesus, he paints himself to be so divine. And he's doing a similar thing that Satan is doing. He wants to be God, but he's doing it in a different way. I'm no longer going to see this as, Jesus good, Lucifer bad. I think they both suck. I think they're both apples that fell from a tree that should have been chopped down ages ago. The reason that the male juveniles are often kicked out of groups in the animal kingdom would be because they would then compete with the alpha male for the women in the family, and you don't want incest, and obviously he does not want to lose his pack or his pride, so get the hell out, okay? Because they may end up fighting to the battle. And somehow Jesus, being a codependent, managed to cosplay as God himself in the flesh and also supposedly be in good standing with God at the same time. There's no way he's not a golden child. He's very arrogant. He's very unrealistic. He's not, it almost feels like he hates the people that he gives this bad advice to. It's almost like it's bad on purpose. Matthew 19:21. If you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give to the poor. Then come, follow me. A homeless man. We can beg together and live off of other people's generosity together. Doesn't he seem entitled? And doesn't he seem like he's sabotaging the lives of everyone who's doing better than him? Is he secretly envious of these people? So when I realized I was in religious psychosis a few years ago, I was looking for answers. I wanted to get out of it, but yet I found myself cornered by other people who were also in religious psychosis, whose psyche broke to the point where they reinforced this very same brainwashing that also reinforced the religious psychosis. It's like, I can't take it anymore. I surrender to you, Jesus. But why'd you have to break me against my will? Was it all for the better? Were you telling me to get rid of all of my possessions for the better? I did what you said. Am I finally good enough for you, Lord? When you're finally broken, worn down by their bad advice, maybe then you can be a chosen one. And at this point, I do not want to be a chosen one. The more that I'm reading the scriptures of Jesus with a different point of view, the more I entirely reject this religion. And I'm appalled. Your conditioning is triggered by other people who were conditioned to trigger you within these cults. And this cult may be a part of this collective religious psychosis consciousness. Like, let's call it that. Okay, so these people operate like flying monkeys or codependents. They are completely unaware that they are telling you to view this abuse in a better light, or that it's good for you, or that this, or that. I felt incredibly alone and disillusioned when realizing that most people reach to the point where they're like, you know what, maybe I am a chosen one. And then they just get locked into those spaces and those echo chambers where it's this continuous feedback loop once more, where anyone who denies what you believe is going to stray you away from God. You know, any negative experience with a person affirms that, you know, evil is real. You know, I'll never deny that evil is real. But there's a religious or Christian way to explain everything that we already know. But it's only affirmed through these belief systems when you're trapped in that religious psychosis and you get stuck. The trope is to go from New Age to Christianity once again when you realize the truth. And at this point, I'm like, fuck all of it, you know? All of it is a part of this Christian matrix. It's like people set out an outline. Well, it actually is an outline for how you should behave, but you don't realize it because of how strategic and insidious this sort of abuse is. Because other people participate in your psychological, spiritual abuse within the very same communities that you escape from, and within the communities that you escape from that community to get into for safety. There's nowhere to run and be safe. And I understand the temporary relief that it may give you, the comfort it may give you. You know, for me, given that, you know, I've really dealt with a lot of religious abuse. And I know a lot of people who've went through satanic ritual abuse, and I do believe in all of those things and the absolute horrors that come from the effects of something like that. You'd have to believe in these things in order to heal yourself initially. Okay? So do what you need, but there comes a stage where you realize it's all fucking bullshit. It's all bullshit. All of it. I have nothing else to say for now. Hopefully it can be of use to someone sometime in the future. I don't know. I figured that since I talk out loud anyway to process my thoughts, I might as well just upload it, because I'm always just talking to myself. Or yapping somebody's air off. Like I take them to Yap City. Anyway, I'm gone. Goodbye.